All right, well, the next show that they came up with had, I thought, the worst idea yet. When I first heard that he was going to write a show about a mass murderer who kills and eats people, I thought, oh no, I'm going to hate this show. Well, of course, I was completely wrong. And Sweeney Todd is, in my opinion, one of, if not the greatest musicals ever written. And what is it that makes it so good? What is it that makes it a little better than some of these other shows? Plot. Sweeney is a guy whose life has been ruined by the powers that be. So he comes back to London, he wants to get his family together, and he wants to wreak revenge. But in the process of wreaking his revenge, he destroys his family. There's tremendous causality. A leads to B, leads to C. Halfway through the show, he goes crazy and he decides he's going to kill everybody. He says, they all deserve to die. And then the end of the act, he sings a duet with his love interest, Mrs. Lovett, in which they gleefully sing about cooking people and baking them into pies. And this is a virtuoso moment for the lyricist, but we don't feel any distance from it. We don't start thinking about the lyricist because we've been so involved in this story and we see exactly why they're doing what they're doing. So the result is, for me at any rate, I'm just sitting there with my jaw down to this, realizing that I am laughing at this song about cannibalism. It's eerie, it's brilliant, but it's very entertaining. Also, I think this show has the best music of his career. He tries all these different things. There's atonal music at one point. There's 1890s music hall music, but it all works together to tell the story. And I think that Oscar Hammerstein would have been very, very proud of this particular show. Now, if Sweeney Todd is the apex of the Sondheim Prince collaboration, their next show, Merrily We Roll Along, is the nadir, at least financially. And that's sad, and it's ironic because they actually set about to write a show that would be popular for the audience. They picked a Kaufman and Hart music comedy from the 40s. And Sondheim wrote one of his warmest, most singable scores. So what went wrong? Well, let's start with the concept. Hal decided he wanted to cast only actors under the age of 20 to play the roles, even though they were mostly 20 to 40 to 50. And he eliminated all the costumes and put everybody in t-shirts that said their character name on them. But if you weren't sitting in the front few rows, you couldn't read the name, and so you really couldn't tell who anybody was. Then there's also the story. So the story is 3 young people meet on a rooftop and they become friends. And over time, the girl becomes a published novelist. The 2 boys start writing musicals. There are tests of their friendship, which eventually destroy the friendship. And by the end, they've become bitter, jaded people. But the story is told in reverse, which means that we start out with the bitter, jaded people. So in the scene 1, we see this obnoxious filmmaker who's not even a particularly good filmmaker, they say, and then this loudmouth, mean drunk. And we're supposed to be so intrigued by them that we want to go backwards in time and see how they became who they are. Now, if you follow it through, as it does go back, the characters do become more likable. They do become surprising. And in fact, in Act 2, there's this wonderful sequence called Opening Doors, in which the 3 are talking about trying to make it, trying to get their first big break in show business. And Stephen Sondheim, by the way, has said that this is the only autobiographical sequence he ever wrote. But the problem was, in the original production, a lot of people didn't make it past intermission, so they didn't see the second likable half. Another thing which Stephen has suggested may have been a factor here was that they had had 5 big hits in a row. And he thought that maybe what came into play was Schadenfreude, and that people were just sort of waiting for them to fail.